the codes, which is interesting. Let me just check out. At least I'm not muted. Last time I went live, I was muted for the first 5 minutes.
I just got a message that Karen is streaming live right now.
Okay, so yeah, it's working. So here we are. Hi, everyone, live in the inner sanctum. Wanted to chat to you all about what I've been through over the last couple of weeks, going out to the outback and making a drum with the beautiful Jane Elworthy. And yeah, she did some amazing activations with there was 11 people participating in the course, and there was about 15 women involved in it, because there was a couple helping, and then there was Jane's partner who was doing all the cooking, who's amazing. I'm going to have her on the show soon, because she's a Reiki teacher, Reiki master. She's a beautiful teacher. We had some amazing conversations while I was away, especially because I think I left just around the time the Queen had left the planet. And so we were talking about all sorts of things that are going on in the world, what that means. Do any of you that are on Zoom, do any of you have, any ideas of what you think the Queen leaving the planet means to you? Nobody? No, nobody's. They're all very quiet. But yes, I'll have a chat with Jackie about that. I'm just going on YouTube. Hello, Diana, who's online, and Alma. So there's a couple of people watching on YouTube. Sorry, I'm just getting this tech. Here we go. Because I'm streaming on YouTube. 6 people watching already. Yeehaw. I'm streaming on YouTube and Facebook in the Awakening Empowerment Network group on Facebook, and also on my Facebook profile. But I can't see all the comments all the time on Facebook. I can see the YouTube ones, but not all the. Anyway, so I set off on a journey to go to the outback, to a place called Broken Hill. And Broken Hill was featured in a movie called Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. Did anyone see Priscilla, Queen of the Desert? Who's seen? You saw it? Yeah. A girlfriend of mine worked on that. She did the makeup. It was back in, I think it was 1974 they made that movie. It was a long time ago, but I think I was talking to, I can't remember who I was talking to, but somebody about different attitudes in the city versus the country. It's very different out in the country of Australia than it is in the cities. The big cities is much more allowing, let me put it that way. There's much more diversity in thought and diversity in the way people live their lives. And in the city, it's a bit more following the sort of mainstream narrative. I was saying I was talking to Joan of Angels on the last show, about trying to find vegan or vegetarian food was almost impossible. And I remember traveling around with my husband 30 odd years ago when my daughter was a baby, and I was a vegetarian back then, and we just ate a lot of chips because I couldn't find any food. And 30 years later, out in the outback, out in the country towns, it's still pretty much the same, which I found kind of interesting. Not a lot of diversity in diet out there. The cities have exploded with vegan food and vegetarian foods, and some of the sort of more alternatives like Byron area, the Byron Bay area in Queensland, the more alternative areas. And there are some places in the country that, attract the healers and the light workers that are exploding in more diversity of thought. But for the most part, it's pretty fixed. But this movie, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, was made, and they took 3 drag queens. Interestingly enough, the actors that played were all straight actors, and they played drag queens. It was hilarious. Dressed them up and took them out there and made this crazy movie called Priscilla, Queen in the Desert, about drag queens traveling through the desert of Australia. And I didn't realize until I went to Broken Hill, which is this town, which is about 2-hour drive from Sydney west into the center of Australia, how that movie had transformed this town. In fact, when we were there, we were just outside the town doing a retreat, but they were having the Broken Hill Festival, which I thought was hilarious because the name of the town is called Broken Hill, and they called their festival Broken Heel. And it was all the trannies and drag queens singing and dancing and, having a festival, like attracting people from all over Australia coming to Broken Hill to dress up, and lots of glitter and lots of, makeup and high heels, and yeah, fabulous. I didn't see the Broken Hill Festival, as I say, because we were on retreat, but I saw the aftermath of it. And I don't know if any of you remember, the woman that was the dress designer for Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, did win an Academy Award for the costumes that she made in the movie. And one of the most iconic costumes was the thong dress. Does anyone remember the thong dress? Like, she just placed thongs all over the dress. So, thong as in flip-flop. I have to use the, we call them thongs down under, not underpants, but flip-flops. And she put flip-flops all over the dress. Anyway, so I went to Kmart one day, and there in the window was the flip-flop dress, was the thong dress. And I was just blown away at how this movie had transformed this town called Broken Hill, because it is a mining town. It's an old mining town, and you see the old mines are still there. When you drive in, the first thing you're affronted with is this big pile of dirt, which is where the old mines are, and all the old rusty buildings. But the mining has actually stopped there. I think they used to mine silver, I'm not sure, silver and all sorts of things. It was really rich in the centre of Australia. It's really rich in minerals, and so there's lots of mines, but many of them have closed down. And I think it was Jane was telling me, that Jane Elworthy that ran the course, that the whole town has been declared it's heritage listed. I don't know why, because it's a bit different to listing things in places like Europe and even in the States, where your history is a lot older. But the fact that it's a mining town, it has made it heritage listed, and to preserve the history and the heritage of the miners that live there and what they went through. And there's a lot of towns out there, but there's a little town just outside of Broken Hill called Silverton, and it was featured in the Mad Max movies. So a lot of movies and movie makers go out to Broken Hill to make these movies, because it's just the long horizons. Getting out there, once you pass Dubbo, which is a country town, which is about 5 hours drive from Sydney, you go over some beautiful mountain ranges. Once you pass Dubbo, you're for days, you're just driving flat. It's just flat. The centre of Australia is so flat, but it's called the desert, but we've had a lot of rain this year. And so it was just rich with wildflowers. There was lots of flowers and lots of greenery, so it wasn't so dry and dusty when I was out there. It was quite beautiful, actually. There's still a lot of dusty, but I'll show you a few happy snaps if you all want to see them. Let me see, where am I? I've got a million things going on here. I've got Zoom open, I've got Restream open. Let me see what you're saying on Restream. Here we go. Hi Dana, hi. Is it Lacey B? And Alma, a few people listening. Let me just share my screen. When I went out there, I thought I would stop in Dubbo, which has a zoo out there called the Western Plains Zoo. And unlike the zoos in the city, the animals have a lot more land to run on. So I really wanted to see that. So I took 2 days to drive out there. You could do it in one day if you drove for about 12 or 13 hours straight. But I took 2 days to get out there, stopped off in Dubbo, got up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I think I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, left at 5 o'clock, got there around 1 o'clock, raced out to the zoo and spent the afternoon in the zoo, and saw the animals in the Western Plains Zoo. So I'll show you a bit of the zoo if you're interested. Are you interested? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Got a couple of nods. Let me see. It's beautiful too. Yeah, here we go. Some rhinos. I mean, looking at pictures of animals is probably not so interesting, but I was amazed to see the setup of this zoo and what the animals were, what sort of conditions that they were living in, the meerkats and the trees, these trees that they have out in the desert of Australia with these big trunks. They store, in the drought months, they store water. Let me have a look. I've got a photograph of that tree. They store water in the trunks, and they were all over this Western Plains Zoo. So it's like your average zoo. The meerkats were hilarious. Let me have a look. I'm trying to play a video. I think my computer's full. It's not letting me do the things that I want to do. Meerkats were hilarious. They had all types of rhinos, white rhinos, black rhinos. This was a sign showing the different type of rhinos and how big they are. They had quite a few of them. Yeah, which I found interesting. There's a woman standing next to it. These are the size of the rhinos. She's reaching up to see how big the greater one-horned rhinos get. They're enormous, absolutely enormous. Let me see if I can play this video. Oh, there was a tiger out there. Doesn't want me to play the videos. No, can't play the videos. That was just growling and growling and growling. I think he was calling to his mate. And anyway, the Western Plains Zoo is, it has all your classic African animals. You know how you were talking, Sarah, about, who was saying that they called the animal in just then? I called this giraffe over because all the giraffes were at the back of the pen. And I spoke to it and he came over to see if there was any food. So that was nice. So he came right up to me. So here they were all at the back. And I thought, I'd really like to see you. We've had Kevin Briggs on the show talking about this. And he was saying, who was it talking about the dragonfly? Was that you, Sarah, that was talking about that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you said you put your finger up. And what did you say to the dragonfly?
Well, I just imagined that I was the dragonfly.
That's right, that you were the dragonfly.
I'm the dragonfly. Just thought that I should go land on that finger.
Something I didn't do, but I just asked them. I remember Kevin Briggs just saying, appreciating them. And I was saying, you're so beautiful. I'd really like to see you up close. I'd really like to see what you look like up close. You're just so beautiful. And I said to all the animals that are out there, thank you for electing to be in captivities so that people like me, so that humans can come and see you up close, just extending that gratitude to them. And so when I did that, this little guy came right up close, right up to where I was, looked like he was looking for food or she was looking for food. I have to say the giraffes are so beautiful. And it didn't work with all the animals. I did it with all of them and it did not work with all of them, but it did work with quite a few of them. This is the rhino. It says, I'm not medicine. Lots of animal activists out there talking about how the rhino's horns are chopped off and the rhinos get killed for, medicines. I've obviously not got these in order. So this is that beautiful giraffe that came right up. So you can see that the pens are really quite big, but they're still not big enough compared to the plains of Africa. They have a lot more space to run around in than a city zoo because this is out in the country, but it's still pretty captive. It's still pretty captive compared to the plains of Africa, which is kind of sad. I find it kind of sad going to zoos and seeing all the animals in captivity. But at the same time, these elephants, I have to say, did not look happy. They were doing your classic moving back and forth, which I think that maybe, Sarah, you'd know better about this, is like a stress, when elephants move back and forth, it's a stress response.
Horses do that.
Yeah.
They're stuck in stalls and they're really bored.
Mm-hmm. And the elephants were doing that. They looked quite bored and stressed. But I took photographs of lots of some of the animals, like the zebras. They looked really happy. And you can see that there's not a lot of fence around, like there's not these big cages that they're in. Oh, this is just the walkway. It's about 8 kilometers, and you get in your car and you drive around it. That was the tiger. He was yelling and screaming. He was hilarious. And then there were, just in the drive, this is the drive, there were wild kangaroos just in the bush. They were not caged in any way. They were just like you're seeing them in the bush. But there were some enclosures like the otters that were in enclosures like a normal zoo. It is a very beautiful zoo. I went to see the koala. There was one koala in captivity. I did not get a very good look at a koala. He was up in a tree. But you can camp there. You can actually camp inside the zoo. There's accommodation where you can camp. And this is the camping accommodation, which I thought was pretty cool. No one was in there at the time I was there. It was empty. I think that you can't actually arrive until the afternoon, and then you might have to leave in the morning. I'm not sure how it works. That's the koala. Not much. I couldn't see much of him, could I? But the koala enclosure, when you walk into the koala enclosure, it is fenced off, but you just walk in amongst all the wallabies and emus. They're all walking around you. So you're not separate to them, except for the koala enclosure, which is obviously the koalas are up in a tree. There's a bit of an enclosure. So again, talking to the animals, I think that's inside. Oh no, this is the Tasmanian Devils. This is the Tasmanian Devil enclosure. I don't know if you can see them, little black cats. Oh, that's the koala. I've got these in order, have I? They're interesting. So they had just had 3 lion cubs, and I just fell in love with the lions. And they were, again, obviously the enclosure is, you're behind barbed wire. That's a video. It's not going to let me share the videos. And the lions, I should say, were right at the back of the enclosure. And we stood there at the fence. And again, I spoke to the little cubs and I asked them to come so we could see them, and told them how beautiful they were. They looked very happy, I have to say. They didn't look sad. And they came right up to the fence. They came right up and sat in front of me. It was so beautiful. So I had a bit of a chat to the beautiful little lions. They were really playful. So there's mum and dad right at the back. They didn't come up, but the babies did. There were 3 of them, and I fell madly, madly in love with them. There's dad there through the barbed wire fence. I don't know if you can see him. Yeah, the lions were beautiful. So playful. Here he is coming. I said, can you come over and say hello? And he was being licked by mum. And then he came right up to the fence. And when he came right up to the fence, the other one followed, but the third one did not. And they were playing it right in front of us, which was absolutely beautiful. That's the lion enclosure. That it's a beautiful enclosure. You walk up these stairs and you can look from a hill into the enclosure. Again, bigger than a city zoo, but not like the plains of Africa that they have to run around in. And they have some beautiful artwork there as well. Interestingly enough, there was a goat enclosure just near the lions, and I wondered if they used the live goats as food. I thought that was really odd to have this goat enclosure right next to the lions. Might be their food. Pride lands. This is some of the art in the zoo. Beautiful. And there's those trees that hold the water in their trunk. I don't know what they're called. So this is out in the place that I stayed in Broken Hill. We were talking cactuses in the chat group. And full of dogs, very outback. This is what the countryside looks like out there, red earth, but a lot of greenery because we've had lots of rain. And this place was amazing. It was very eclectic. I've got to say it was completely chaotic, but it was very eclectic. It looked like they had been collecting things for years. And these are the skins that we made the drums with. So the skins were goat and kangaroo. And Jane did say that they came from the meat industry. Obviously, if she had made the frames, the wooden frames for us, and it was up to us to stretch the skins over the drums. And the ritual that we went through for the drum making exercise, and Kristen, you probably do this too when you make drums, is, oh, that's a beautiful handle, is to speak to the to speak to, let me just stop sharing for a minute. Let me look at you. To speak to the animal of the drum. Do you do that when you're doing your drum making, to actually telepathically speak to the animal that used to wear the skin? Did you do that as well?
Yeah, that's how I have a lot of friends that also teach. That's why I was so interested in what the skins were down there. And we have friends that bear is very rare because it has to be a bear that has died naturally.
Right.
But there's elk and deer, and there's another one that a lot of my friends have. And buffalo, we get buffalo hide.
Wow.
And each one has a different vibration, and sometimes they can tell that it's a female bear. And so you get that mama bear. And yes, you communicate with it as you're tying them with with more deer hide that's stretched into strings, and you put your intentions into it. It's a very beautiful ceremony. So
Yeah. I had never done anything like this before, so I was a little kind of freaked out. And then I'm like telling myself, get over it. People wear leather, people eat animals all the time. But being someone who's been a vegetarian, vegan for years, it's not like I haven't eaten animal product, because I have a lot, and worn leather and stuff like that. But I've never really worked with animal skins and like that before. And yeah, so I tuned into the little goat. I chose a goat skin, and he showed himself to me. And I saw him, and it's going to make me cry. And I thanked him for, being on Earth and doing what he did, because Jane did say that it's hard to find the skins now, and it's becoming more and more difficult for her to find the skins. But she did get it from the meat industry. So the industry has, slaughtered these animals specifically for, I don't know, goat and kangaroo is probably more for the animal meat industry. They make cat food and dog food out of it. And she's wincing. But the cats and the dogs, they got to eat, right? They got to eat. And then the skins are left over, and so that's where she got the skins from. But we honored that. But not only did we honor the animal that provided the skin, we honored the tree that made the frame as well, and spoke to the tree. Do you do that as well? Do you want to come on camera?
Yeah, you can put me on camera. That's fine. Yeah, I have actually. Yeah, I don't know where the drum frames are made that my friends get. They're generally all the same, though. But I do the same when we make a rattle, like the rattle that you have. And so I've used sticks from my grapevines that have grown on my property for like 20 years, that we planted years ago. For that, and then the hide, and yeah, you kind of speak to it, and you put your the sincere intention into it, and then they become beautiful tools for shaman work on myself, or for when I'm helping somebody else. So yeah, but I don't know, I don't recall what kind of wood. It's funny, you can see my drums in the background. There's this red one, and then
did you make that one?
So I get really intimidated making stuff by myself, and actually the natural hide drums like yours, they require a lot of I like to joke and say proper care and feeding. Mm-hmm. And so you have to put shea butter, and we live in a really dry climate, and you have to heat them up before you're at a drum circle, sometimes because we do a lot in the cold. And so mine that you can see here are they're synthetic drums. These ones that I use the most. I have the one, I did help my late hubby tie his own skin drum a few years ago before he passed. So yeah, but I get it. Like I'm not vegan. I'm not vegetarian. I wear leather shoes. Yeah. But I like the synthetic drums, and I put all of my Reiki energy and intentions, and I have crystals that I put in the handles and things like that.
Yeah, so, I mean, Jane has been teaching and making drums for years, and she's a master drum maker and master shaman. And her attitude is, no, you have to use animal skin. Because I said to her, can I make a synthetic drum? And she's like, no. But then I've had friends come over with their synthetic drums, and they've been amazing. So the synthetic drums are, as I think.
But my community, my community here, my in-person tribes, most all of them have drums that they've tied and made. And so I'm
Right.
kind of the outlier. But I love that they're a really great palette to paint on as well. You can paint on the others, but a lot of people paint on them. Are you going to paint on yours? You're quite the artist.
No, no, it's just I chose. I haven't got the drum here. I should have gone and got it, but it's just behind me. I chose a little white goat. It's funny, all the skins. I'll go back to sharing my screen where all the skins were different colors, and I thought I was going to choose one that these are the skins here. That was sort of,
Beautiful.
a different color, like the one that was put right in front of me. I thought, I'll just choose that one. So let me just make a decision. And she said, no, 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 you have to like go around and tune into the skin, and you have to spend more time. And I ended up choosing one that had no colors on it, which was this one, which was a little white goat. And so it didn't have a lot of color on it. And that's the color of the skin I chose, because when I was driving there, I saw so many wild goats, and I had no idea that Australia was just full of wild goats. When I first saw the goats on the side of the road, I thought, oh my gosh, somebody's goats have escaped. I wonder if they'll come and pick them up. And then as I kept driving for hours and hours and hours, I saw more and more and more of them, and quite a bit of roadkill, mostly wallaby roadkill. I saw about 4 God, I've forgotten the name of the animal. Anyway, come back to me. I saw emus and goats, and there was quite a bit of roadkill on the side of the road, but mostly wallabies.
May I ask what
Yeah.
what it's tied with? What is the string made from? Do you know?
Oh, that's just string. I don't know what the string's made from. Why?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
because like I said, all my friends that teach classes and make them here
Mhm.
use like it's long strip of deer hide. It's long strips of hide that they soften just like the skins. I'm gonna send you a local woman that she paints on the drums. She'll dye the skins
Nice.
and then she'll do natural.
Yeah.
It will be interesting because she does podcasts, or not podcasts, like TikToks and stuff.
Yeah. I think that's the kangaroo skin. That's somebody else's drum there. The
It's
kangaroo skin.
beautiful.
Yeah, and that's my drum, which is as I said, it was a little white goat which had no color on him.
You need
But
to
it was
paint on
that-
it. I'm
that's
just feeling
that's me
you.
whittling. So we made the stick that bangs it, and we made, because we put holes in the drums. Where's the to hold it? So there's, you can see it there.
Yeah, for the stick. That's beautiful.
Yeah, there's a stick that you insert in it so that you can hold it with the stick underneath, and we had to whittle it. And so this is me whittling. Somebody took this photograph of me outside whittling this stick. I'm such a city girl, so it was quite different to be out in the outback whittling a stick and making. This is some of the eclectic stuff in this amazing place that we stayed in. It was all corrugated iron, this big, it was fabulous. I loved it, but it was very messy. There's Jackie and the girls discussing the drums. That's Jane, our master teacher, Jane Elworthy, discussing the drums. Some of the artwork there was like corrugated iron and pressed tin artwork.
Was it all women intentionally, or just that's who showed up?
No, all women intentionally. Yeah. And that some of the women, it just, when we were out there, as I said, the Queen had just died, and that all the women came from all over Australia, like Western Australia, which is on the other side of Australia. They flew in, and Victoria and Queensland and New South Wales. They came from all over Australia, country towns. And I was amazed at how she attracted this small group of women from all over the country. And we came together to sort of make a drum. It was like we were making a drum, but really we were doing something much bigger, because they were all healers and shaman, and some of them had the most amazing stories. I'll put some of them on the show. Amazing stories. Yeah, so this is my drum. I made a drum.
It's so beautiful.
You like it?
I want
like
to hear it
I'll get it
sometime.
I made this little sticky thing too, and I don't know. Yeah,
I'm going to recommend a book, and this is why I was interested if it was women or, a blend of women and men. It's called The Drummers Were Women by Lane Redmond.
Uh-huh.
And it goes back to, it was about 2000 BC, 1500 BC, up until that point, that, the women were the shamans. And you find all the little old statuettes that are about then and older, and the cave paintings and drawings. And I never noticed this before, but you always see the women with frame drums
Absolutely.
in their hands, and those were their tools. And then it's kind of when they became more the hunters gatherers that some of that went to the wayside, and then maybe patriarchy took over. I don't know, but it's been one of the most beautiful books I've ever read about the drummers being women. And I myself, when I started coming to the spiritual communities, I was going to drum circles, and I would just like stand there. The drum is your heart. And so you don't really have to have a drum to go to these drum circles. And they're not the drum circles with all the Rastafarians like playing at Griffith Park, in LA. It's like not that. And it was these women, and I just felt so called and drawn to it. And I eventually, bought that red drum there, and got my husband to, he said, if I'm going to have a drum, I'm going to make it. And he made one. And it's literally like, it's medicine to me. And I feel like it's hearkening back to drawing ancient, divine, feminine wisdom and bringing it back.
Absolutely. That's absolutely. In fact, I don't know if you've seen the shows. I've had Jane on the show a couple of times. She speaks about the history of the frame drum throughout history, and how it was classically played by women. And there were some parts of our history where the frame drum was like illegal. It was made illegal, and women weren't to that. And still parts of like in Iraq and Iran, it's still illegal for a woman to play the frame drum. So,
because it is such, it's just power, and it's just a medicine. Not that men can't play it, because I have a lot of men friends that make the drums and play them, and it's beautiful too. There's just something that I think calls us back to our ancient history.
Absolutely.
So that's my platform about the drum. Thank you.
Oh, we've lost a few people. We've lost Sarah. I was going to get Sarah to come on and talk about animal communication. So shall I continue sharing my screen? What else have I got going on here? Where's my hang on, where's the advanced? Oh, I've lost it. Where are you? Maybe this is it. Desktop. Yeah, there we go. Back. So this is Silverton. This is where they filmed a lot of Mad Max. This is the pub at Silverton. There's 30 people that live in Silverton, this little country town that's outside of Broken Hill. And you'll see that you look down these desert roads, and they just go like, they just go forever out into the outback. It's such a classic place out at Silverton. There's the girls getting out of the car. The little Silverton pub, it's for sale if anyone wants to buy a pub in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by nothing. It actually gets a lot of patronage. This is the town of Silverton, such a classic outback town. I think that's why so many movies use it. And there are a few of these little structures around the town, and most of them are art galleries. So there's a lot of rusty old cars in the outback. I don't know why people seem to think they're great, and they paint all over them. This is another rusty old car with bottle tops stuck all over it. And that's the church behind me. We were taken on a camel ride. There's this fabulous couple. This is another art gallery out in Silverton. This is the art gallery. It's the same building. Another art gallery. They were closed when we were there, so we didn't go inside. But the little garden out the front, another rusty old car with plants inside it. This is the same building. That's now a piece of art, an old. You'll see that there's some feet sticking out the bottom. That's not really a real person. It's an old outdoor loo, or dunny as they're called in the outback. Another rusty old car painted outside this art gallery. Lots of rusty old cars people have turned in. So this is the town of Silverton. This is done on the camera when you pan around. And that little church, it just sits in the middle of nowhere. Actually, that's the Masonic Hall. The Masons are out in the middle of the outback, and that's the little church there. So we've got religion and the Masons out in the middle of the nowhere, which I found very interesting. But the people that we went on, that's that same art gallery. This is all art, rusty old bikes. The girls. More junk, a lot of junk out in the outback. This is the Mad Max Museum. This was next to the Mad Max Museum. Some more rusty old cars and junk. This is the Mad Max Museum, which was shut when we were there. I think that you can go in there and watch excerpts of the Mad Max movies. But the locals were saying that, oh, this was a bit of wildflower growing in the middle of the desert underneath a car. I just thought that that was kind of cute. The locals were saying that they've just finished making Mad Max 5, and Hemsworth, one of the Hemsworth boys, was out there. You know, all these actors, all these Hollywood movie stars were out there, and they just finished a few months ago. So the town really swells when the movie industry goes out there. This is inside the pub, masses of photographs. But what I thought was hilarious was when you look up, there's all these, that's me and a cider. There's all these sayings hanging from the wall. People have put their 2 cents worth on a piece of paper. This one says, politicians are like nappies. They need changing every so often for the same reason. Anyway, all these sayings hang from the pub's ceiling. My husband said he needed some space, so I locked him outside. Married men never live longer because their wives look after them. Yeah, so people have put their 2 cents. This hotel is covered by, I can't read that, something 3 nights a week. You pick with which one. Anyway, Aussie sense of humor. This was used in the Mad Max movie. It sits outside the pub. Don't know if any of you have seen that movie. I haven't seen them for years. And this is the animal sanctuary that was just next to Silverton. This couple live out there. It makes me cry thinking of them. Her name is Peter and his name is Duncan. And they've had it for a few years, and they've got about 100 animals out there. This classic old picture. So more rusty cars. There's an emu, and all the animals, unlike the zoo, are rescue animals. They're they've been rescued from being run over or broken wings or broken what have you, and they rescue and heal them. And then not the goats, there's just so many wild goats. I don't know why they've got the goats. Maybe they were rescue animals as well. They had deer, a couple of deer, rescue animals, emus. That's a goat jumping on the trampoline, hilarious. The deer, a couple of llama. So unlike farms that have animals to farm, that was an emu just hanging around the property. He wasn't locked in. He was just like a pet. And that's one of the girls having a chat with the emu. And they've got camels, and the way that they support the animal sanctuary is that they do camel rides. But I've never seen two people, these animal whisperers. I tell you what, Duncan was talking to all the camels, and as he lined them up, he was asking each of them, that's the emu and a cat having a bit of an encounter there. He was asking the camels to kiss him. And so all the camels were giving him a kiss. And so we went on a camel ride. This is one of the camels kissing Duncan. I thought it was hilarious. And this is Peter here and her pet dingo. So she's got 2 dingoes as pets. This one is a half-breed, apparently has border collie in him. So we were talking about the dingo. This is the dingo, because they are wild animals. They're wild dogs. And this one has been tamed because he just loves Peter. She's such an animal whisperer, I tell you. She's an ex-police officer, and she retired a few years back, met Duncan. The 2 of them got married in that little tiny church out in Silverton, which was televised. It was on television on a show called Extreme Weddings. So she put on the big fluffy wedding dress and got on the camels and went to the church on the camels. But she was telling me about her pet dingo who sleeps on her bed with her, with a lamb, with a baby lamb, because I said, does he get into the chickens? She said, no, doesn't attack the chickens. He's completely free. He's not chained up, and he's, you know, he stays around. He's got a dog door in the house and comes and goes. And so, yeah, she's got this pet dingo who just adores her. And we were saying to her, you know, what's the nature of a dingo? This is us with our drums. They were taking photographs. There's a lot better photographs than what I've got of us holding our drums up on the camel, bit of a publicity stunt. What's the nature of a dingo? And she said they're very, very wary animals. So they don't come near humans. Because he's so wary, when she's around other people in a group, he wants to stay by her side the whole time, but he doesn't want to be around the other people. So he's perplexed. He's like trying to avoid all the other people by also walking next to her. This is us up on the camels. This is me. So he just stays by her side the whole time. It was so sweet. So cute. He was so tame. Yeah, it was beautiful how the love of animals, what you can do. This is Peter. That's the Masonic Hall behind her. And on the other side of her is this little tiny chapel that she got married in. Yeah, the camels. And that's the beautiful sunset. And that's the desert. You'll see that there's a lot of green. There was a lot of water around because they'd had a lot of rain. Another art gallery out there at Silverton with more rusty cars and rusty things around it. This is inside the pub in Broken Hill. I don't know if any of you saw Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, but this is the shoe that was on the top of the car, on top of the bus. And it sits now in the foyer of the pub called the Palace in Broken Hill. And this is where they had the Broken Heel Festival, the stage. And the foyer of the Broken Hill pub has all this artwork. It's incredible, just beautiful. That's the heel, the shoe that was on top of the bus. It's got to be, God, how old is that? It's got to be over 35 years old. Yeah, maybe coming up to 40 years old. Sits in the pub. This is where we were doing the retreat, some of the eclectic stuff around. That was one of the outside rooms, which is covered in net so the flies don't get you. That was beautiful. That's the inside. As I said, very eclectic, beautiful, lots of old antiques, a lot of junk around as well, but some of it worked, some of it just looked amazing, some of it just looked messy. And out of Broken Hill, there was a famous Australian artist called Pro Hart. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of Pro Hart, but he has since left the planet. I think he left probably in the 2017s or early 2000s. I can't remember when he left the planet. He was in his 80s when he died. He was an iconic Australian painter, and his artwork became really well known. And his house has been turned into his gallery space, an exhibition of all his art. So I went out there and had a look at his art. And he depicted a lot of the scenes that happened around him. As I said, it was a mining town, Broken Hill. So he depicted a lot of the scenes of the mining town. And he painted his Rolls Royces. Why not? If you've got a few, he had about 4 of them. Maybe he had more. There are 4 of them still on display. One of them he painted up. Why not? This is a classic, iconic image that he made, that he painted, depicting war. Anyway, it was fascinating to go out there. That's him sitting around the fire with a couple of other people. He did a lot of dragonflies. One of you said that you were talking to a dragonfly. Actually, somebody on YouTube said that they were talking to a dragonfly as well. He's got iconic art. That's him there, Pro Hart, I should say. More of his. So the depiction of the dragonfly is Brad still online? He'll love these. Is the dragonfly basically being eaten by the ants on the red floor? Just sort of, and then lots of great art with all the ants on the red desert floor. This is his studio that's in the house. That's it's behind a glass wall, so nobody can go in there and wreck it, but that's where he used to paint. That's an old tucker box, an old lunch box that he's painted up. And that's the outside of his house where the gallery is. These are the wildflowers that, as I was driving, because the desert is so green at the moment, there were just fields and fields of these beautiful coloured flowers. There were purple and pink and white and all sorts of colours. But this is called Patterson's curse, and the farmers hate it because if the animals eat it, they get sick. But it did look very pretty. And some of the wild goats, I was trying to take photographs as I was driving. I actually stopped to take a photograph of these goats. And of course, as soon as I stopped, they all ran away. Yeah. So there we are. Are you still online, Kristen? Are you still there, Brady? Yeah, so that's some of the things that I got up to. Any questions? Anyone got any questions on what you saw? Had you heard of Pro Heart, Brad? Hadn't heard of him? Iconic Australian artist. He was quite well known here because he did a couple of television commercials. He was painting on the carpet. He was he used to, like, one of those artists that threw paint everywhere and just really sort of like, he would turn a mess into this masterpiece. And there was an iconic ad on television of him painting that dragonfly, one of the dragonflies, on a carpet. And then his cleaner came in and said, "Oh, Mr. Hart, such a mess." And she cleans the carpet. She cleans off the painting. And the ad was for the carpet cleaner. But anyway, so people knew him from his art. But my nephew had an art exhibition recently, and he is just one of these amazing kids that is just didn't do 3D school, but has this incredible psychic and creative ability. And his art is pretty wild. And I showed him some of this art because this guy was this really successful and multi-million-dollar artist who made a really good living. As I said, he had all these cars and everything. He made a really good living from his art. And so I was showing my nephew some of his art, and they'd see, you can make money out of art. It's dark and beautiful. Alison said, "I love this country, it's dark and beautiful." Painted the carpet with spaghetti and bolognese. Yes, that's right. He painted the carpet with spaghetti and bolognese and recreated that iconic. Yeah, exactly. Incredible. So I think I'm going to stop it there. Nobody's got any questions. I'm going to stop the live and say thanks to everyone who was listening and watching, and go back to the group. Stay on. We'll go back to the group. So I'll stop.